Have you ever thought about what happens when a man stares through a rifle scope for so long that the scope starts staring back? When the crosshairs stop feeling like a tool and start feeling like a doorway? A sniper doesn't just take lives from a distance, he collects shadows, hundreds of them, each one ending silently, hundreds of yards away, with the pull of a finger. A man can become so good at killing that even the people fighting beside him begin to fear what he's turning into. Before we go any further, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. That support is how we keep uncovering the war stories history tried to bury, the ones that never made it into textbooks. Subscribe now if you want more classified accounts that shaped the darkest moments of our past. In military records, he was listed under a call sign only, Ghost Echo. His real name was James Whitlock. He came from Cridge, a quiet mining town tucked away in West Virginia. 6'3", painfully pale blue eyes that didn't reflect light so much as absorb it. In civilian life, Whitlock was forgettable, a high school math teacher, quiet, brilliant at chess, known for a level of patience that unsettled people who spent too long around him. Those same traits would turn him into the deadliest American sniper of World War II. Officially, Whitlock was credited with 217 confirmed kills across the European theater between 1943 and 1945. But that number barely scratches the surface. Recently declassified Army intelligence documents suggest the real figure was closer to 400. Dozens of missions connected to his service are still blacked out, nearly 80 years later under national security restrictions. Even more disturbing were the stories whispered by his own squad. Men who fought beside Whitlock claimed he could predict enemy movement before it happened. He'd take aim at empty ground, and moments later, German soldiers would walk straight into his sights. Private First Class Thomas Merrick wrote about it in a letter home in February 1944, a letter that never reached its destination. "Whitlock doesn't sleep like the rest of us," Merrick wrote. "He just sits there, eyes open, staring at nothing for hours. Then he'll grab his rifle and relocate. 5 minutes later, a German patrol appears exactly where he's aiming. It's like he knows." What made this even stranger was Whitlock's past. Before the war, he had never fired a gun, not once. Yet within 3 weeks of basic training at Camp Loon, he shattered every marksmanship record on file. His instructors noted his unnerving calm under pressure and breathing control that bordered on inhuman. A psychological evaluation, sealed until 2019, questioned whether Whitlock even possessed normal emotional responses, citing his complete detachment when discussing killing enemy soldiers. Those concerns were ignored. The war needed shooters, and Whitlock was sent straight to the front. His first confirmed kill came on September 12, 1943, outside the Italian village of Alta Villa Sententina during the Allied invasion. From over 1,200 yards away, Whitlock eliminated a German officer with a single shot. Later analysis concluded the shot should have been impossible, given the weather, terrain, and the standard-issue Springfield rifle he was using. By December, German forces in Italy were spreading rumors of a phantom sniper. They called him Der Geistschütze, the ghost shooter. Intercepted communications showed German command deploying specialized counter-sniper teams specifically to areas where Whitlock had been operating. None of them ever found him.
What truly separated Whitlock from other snipers was how he worked. He rarely used a spotter. He often crossed deep into enemy territory alone, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. He carried almost nothing, just his rifle, a sidearm, and a single canteen of water. No radio, no food, barely any ammunition. He moved like smoke through the mountains, Sergeant Harold Bronson recalled decades later. We'd assigned him a 3-day mission. He'd be gone for 2 weeks. And then Whitlock would simply reappear in camp. No injuries, no exhaustion, just pages of handwritten intelligence, German troop movements, supply routes, command locations, details entire recon units had somehow missed. The strangest thing, Bronson said, was Whitlock's rifle. Standard protocol required constant cleaning, especially in the wet Italian winters, but Whitlock's Springfield looked like it had never been taken apart. When the unit armorer finally forced an inspection, the weapon was nearly frozen solid with grime. By every law of mechanics, it shouldn't have fired. Yet Whitlock kept delivering impossible shots day after day, as if physics itself bent around him. Things took a darker turn in early 1944 at Monte Cassino. The ancient monastery, turned into a German fortress, had stalled Allied advances for months. Desperate commanders approved Operation Phantom Sight, a classified mission sending Whitlock and 3 elite snipers behind enemy lines to eliminate key German officers. Only Whitlock came back. The after-action report, declassified in 2015, is riddled with contradictions. Whitlock claimed the other snipers were killed by German patrols, yet he himself remained behind enemy lines for 11 days, racking up 38 confirmed kills, including 3 high-ranking officers whose deaths crippled German command at Monte Cassino. What the report leaves out are the prisoner interrogations that followed. After the monastery finally fell, 3 German soldiers, questioned separately, told the same story. They spoke of a shadow moving through their camps at night. Not a man, something else, something that whispered to them in perfect German right before they died. Officially, these accounts were dismissed as fear-driven hallucinations. Unofficially, the interrogation officer noted something chilling, seasoned veterans shaking uncontrollably as they spoke. And then there was the evidence. Every single target from Operation Phantom Sight was killed the same way. One shot, same exact spot, the base of the skull, where the spine meets the cranium. Perfect, every time. Under real combat conditions, different angles, shifting distances, moving targets, what Whitlock achieved should have been impossible. The ballistics officer who examined the German bodies put it plainly in a sealed report. The uniformity of these wounds defies conventional marksmanship. Even allowing for elite skill, the probability of identical shot placement across 38 engagements wasn't just unlikely, it bordered on mathematical absurdity. As Allied forces pushed north through Italy and surged into France after D-Day, Whitlock's legend exploded. American commanders began requesting him by name for high-value eliminations. His personnel file filled with commendations, including several from General George Patton himself, who privately referred to Whitlock as our avenging angel. But admiration didn't mean comfort. The men who served near him grew increasingly uneasy. Incident reports describe soldiers refusing to share bunk space or foxholes with Whitlock during artillery barrages. One report from October 1944 stands out. During a brutal German bombardment outside Metz, France, Whitlock sat fully exposed on a crumbling stone wall. Shells detonated all around him. He didn't flinch. He calmly cleaned his rifle and softly sang. Witnesses later wrote that it wasn't any song they recognized, not in any language they had ever heard. The truth behind what was happening to James Whitlock began to surface through the private journal of Army psychiatrist Captain Robert Wasserman. Wasserman was assigned to evaluate special operations personnel across the European theater. His first session with Whitlock took place in November 1944. After Whitlock accurately predicted a surprise German counterattack, allowing Allied forces to stage a devastating ambush. Patient W exhibits concerning dissociative traits, Wasserman wrote. He remains articulate and focused, yet refers to himself in the third person when discussing combat. When asked directly how he anticipated enemy movements so precisely, Whitlock smiled, a smile Wasserman described as deeply unsettling. "I don't find them, Doctor," Whitlock said. "They find me. They're drawn to the scope like moths to a flame." Later sessions grew darker. Whitlock spoke of what he called the other side of the scope, moments when he claimed to see through the eyes of men he had not yet met. He described knowing intimate details about German officers, their routines, habits, even personal memories, long before intelligence ever confirmed their existence. "It's a trade," he explained during one recorded session.
I look at them through the scope, and something looks back through me. It shows me where they'll be. It guides my hand. It never misses. Wasserman diagnosed severe combat fatigue and formally recommended Whitlock's removal from frontline duty. The recommendation was denied. A single note was added to Whitlock's file by the War Department. Asset Whitlock's continued deployment authorized under Protocol Harbinger. Psychiatric observations to continue under classified status. What Protocol Harbinger actually was remains redacted to this day. But Wasserman's later entries tell a disturbing story. Month by month, Whitlock grew more distant. His speech became cryptic. His accuracy, already unnatural, somehow improved. By January 1945, during the final Allied push into Germany, Whitlock's behavior shifted completely. He no longer functioned solely as a sniper. He volunteered for solo night patrols deep into enemy territory. Soldiers watching him through night vision optics reported that he moved with an eerie, fluid grace, navigating pitch darkness as if it were daylight. He doesn't use his rifle much anymore, Lieutenant David Coleman wrote in a field report. He prefers to get close. That same morning, 3 German sentries were found dead. Their throats had been cut so precisely the medic compared it to surgical work. Whitlock returned before dawn, drenched in blood that wasn't his. He had no injuries. When questioned, he offered only this: "They wanted to see me. I obliged." The most chilling incident came in February 1945 during the Allied advance toward the Rhine. An Allied platoon discovered an abandoned German bunker complex near the Hurtgen forest. Inside were 17 German officers, arranged in a perfect circle. Each had been killed by a single shot to the temple. At the center of the circle was a crude symbol drawn in dust on the concrete floor. It was an exact replica of Whitlock's rifle scope reticle, but between the crosshairs were strange symbols. No linguist, no cryptographer, no intelligence unit has ever decoded them.
Military investigators concluded all 17 men were killed within the same 2-minute window, ballistically impossible for a single shooter. And yet, Whitlock's recovered field journal listed every officer by name, rank, and exact time of death, written hours before the bunker was discovered. One of the final entries read, "The scope sees all. It hungers. I am no longer the hunter. I am only the conduit through which it feeds." As Allied forces closed in on Berlin in April 1945, Whitlock became increasingly unstable. He disappeared for days without orders, returning with intelligence that later proved accurate down to the meter. In his rare communications with command, he spoke of the others, entities he claimed were guiding him toward targets whose deaths would unravel what he called the weave of what's to come. In his final documented session with Captain Wasserman on April 17, 1945, Whitlock said something that ended the notes abruptly. "There are moments when I look through the scope and I can see every bullet I've ever fired and every bullet I will fire. They're all the same bullet, Doctor, one line stretching through time, and something is following that line back to me." On April 30th, 1945, the same day Adolf Hitler died in his Berlin bunker, James Whitlock vanished. The last man to see him was Corporal Michael Jenkins, stationed at a checkpoint outside Dresden. "He walked past me just before midnight," Jenkins wrote in the official missing persons report. His rifle was slung over his shoulder, but something about it was wrong. The metal didn't reflect the moonlight. It shifted inside it, like it was alive. Corporal Jenkins called out, ordering him to stop. Whitlock turned. Jenkins would later swear those weren't human eyes anymore. It felt like staring through a scope into pure, endless darkness. Whitlock spoke only once. "The war is over for most," he said calmly. "Mine continues." Then he stepped into the forest. Search parties were deployed at first light. Dogs, scouts, nothing. No footprints, no broken branches. It was as if the forest had closed around him and erased him completely.
The official record lists Staff Sergeant James Whitlock as missing in action, presumed dead. He was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross and the Silver Star. His name was carved into memorials in his hometown of Cridge, West Virginia, and at Arlington National Cemetery. A neat ending, a hero's ending. Except the story didn't stop. In 1956, during the Hungarian Revolution, Soviet commanders began dying. 8 high-ranking officers were eliminated over 3 days, each with a single shot to the exact same point at the base of the skull, the identical signature Whitlock had used during Operation Phantom Sight 12 years earlier. Soviet counter-sniper teams never found the shooter. In 1968, during the Battle of Hue in Vietnam, it happened again. 5 North Vietnamese commanders were killed by shots witnesses described as impossible. Bullets that appeared to bend, strike from impossible angles, or pass through solid cover. American sniper units denied involvement. One internal report noted something chilling. The recovered rounds were consistent with a World War II-era Springfield rifle, long retired from U.S. service. In 1979, KGB documents later recovered by the CIA described an American sniper operating in Afghanistan during the opening phase of the Soviet-Afghan War. 23 Soviet officers were killed in a matter of weeks. The physical description matched Whitlock exactly, including the pale blue eyes. By then, Whitlock would have been in his 60s.
The KGB operation to capture him ended abruptly. The 3-man team sent into the mountains was found dead in a narrow pass, their bodies arranged in a perfect triangle. Between them, drawn into the dirt, was a rifle scope reticle. The most recent credible encounter came during Operation Desert Storm in 1991. A Marine reconnaissance unit reported encountering an elderly American behind Iraqi lines carrying a World War II-era rifle. The man identified himself as James Whitlock. He handed over precise coordinates for Iraqi command bunkers that didn't appear on any coalition intelligence maps. Satellite surveillance later confirmed the information was accurate down to the meter. A special forces team was dispatched to find him. They never did. The bunkers, however, were later discovered, abandoned. The officers inside had been killed, each by a shot ballistics experts traced to a World War II Springfield. "I spent 40 years tracking the Whitlock case," said Dr. Eleanor Crane, a retired Defense Intelligence Agency analyst, in a 2012 interview published only after her death in 2019. "The evidence suggests we're not dealing with a man anymore. The precision, the consistency across decades, the shots that ignore physics. This is something else." Crane's research pointed to a classified World War II initiative known as Project Looking Glass, a program rumored to explore paranormal methods of battlefield intelligence. Officially, all records were destroyed in a 1951 Pentagon fire. Unofficially, fragments suggest the project studied sympathetic resonance between observer and target, using modified optical equipment to create a psychic link between a sniper and the one they aimed at. Whitlock wasn't the first test subject. He was the only one who survived. Whatever came through that scope didn't just enhance him, it changed him, and it didn't leave when the war ended. Paranormal researcher Marcus Bellamy proposed a darker theory in his controversial book, The Eternal Sniper. He argued that Whitlock's consciousness merged with what he called the trajectory of intent, the focused will that guides a bullet to its target. In that state, Whitlock no longer exists as flesh and blood. He exists as a presence, a hunter that appears wherever war ignites, drawing to violence the way fire draws oxygen. Bellamy wrote, "Every war has its ghosts, but only one war created a ghost that continues to fight in every war, past, present, and future. A ghost that looks through every scope, that steadies every sniper's hands. In the breath between heartbeats, just before a perfect shot breaks, James Whitlock is still there, watching, guiding, hunting." Perhaps the most unsettling evidence comes from modern snipers in Iraq and Afghanistan, stories of crosswinds dying at the exact moment of firing, targets stepping into sight lines without explanation,
the chilling sensation of someone else's hands steadying the rifle. I was lining up an impossible shot, 1,700 meters, high winds, outside Kandahar, said a Navy SEAL sniper who asked to remain anonymous. And then everything went still. As he prepared to take the shot, he heard breathing beside him. Not over the radio, not in his own head, right there. The air suddenly went dead still, no wind, no sound, and he swore he felt cold fingers gently adjusting his aim, just a fraction, barely a touch. The shot landed perfectly.
Later, reviewing the helmet cam footage frame by frame, they noticed something impossible. For a split second, a reflection appeared in the scope. An old man stood behind him, pale blue eyes, a World War II-era uniform. When the image was enhanced, a name tape became visible: Whitlock. The Pentagon officially dismissed the footage as stress-induced hallucination, a known phenomenon among combat personnel. Whitlock's service record was immediately sealed under national security classification, locked until the year 2075, an unusually heavy restriction for a World War II soldier. Even more unsettling are the numbers. A long-term analysis of sniper records from World War II to modern conflicts reveals a recurring anomaly: a statistically impossible spike in first-round kills and impossible shots, all occurring on the same date, April 30th, the anniversary of James Whitlock's disappearance. Across sniper units worldwide, the date has taken on a superstitious reputation. Many quietly refuse missions that day. They call it Ghost Scope Day. In 2015, a construction crew excavating land in Germany's Hürtgen forest uncovered something that wasn't on any military map: a sealed concrete bunker. Inside were thousands of spent rifle cartridges arranged in precise, ritual-like patterns. At the center stood a crude altar made from stacked helmets: German, Russian, American, Vietnamese, Iraqi, all pierced with identical bullet holes straight through the center. Carved into the concrete wall behind it were the words: "The scope sees, the scope hungers, the scope waits for you." German authorities sealed the site and denied its existence. Every construction worker involved quit within a month. 3 later took their own lives. Each left behind the same note: "I looked through the scope."
To this day, a classified division within the Defense Intelligence Agency maintains what they call the Whitlock Protocol, a system for cataloging sniper incidents that defy rational explanation. These files remain among the most restricted in U.S. military history, accessible only under the highest clearance. So the question remains: is James Whitlock still out there? Did he transcend death itself, becoming something neither human nor spirit? A guardian, or something far darker? A presence that feeds on the final moment of life, viewed through the intimate connection of a sniper's scope. No one knows for certain. All that's known is this: in war zones around the world, soldiers still whisper his name. Some say they feel him just before they pull the trigger. Others leave offerings: spent rounds, scope caps, a splash of whiskey, small tributes to the phantom that steadies their aim. And in sniper schools across the United States, instructors still pass down an old warning: never stare through your scope for nothing for too long, because you never know what might start looking back. For those who have seen combat, who understand the weight of taking a life through crosshairs, the story of James Whitlock is both a warning and a strange comfort, a reminder that in the cold math of warfare, in that perfect arc of ballistic destiny, something beyond human understanding may be watching. The scope sees all, and sometimes it chooses to share its vision. But remember this: when darkness feels overwhelming, when war, fear, and horror seem to close in,
There is a greater power than anything that hides in the shadows. Turn to God and to Jesus Christ, for they offer a light no darkness can overcome. Unlike the gaze through Whitlock's scope, their vision brings not death, but life, not terror, but peace. And even the most haunted souls can find redemption in that light.